Hi everyone, thank you guys so much for joining. Today we're going to be reading Abigail Rosalee's birth. She was born April 21st, 2000 by Katie Hergeton. So I first off just want to say thank you guys so much for listening to my videos. I really appreciate it. And then also if you guys don't mind sharing this video with someone that you think it would help or that they would enjoy hearing the positive birth stories or whatever. And hopefully as I continue to be more educated, I can make more educational videos. And then let me know down below in the comment section if you guys have any questions or anything that you guys would like to see. So, Abigail Rosalee's birth. My husband, George, was born in the farm birthing house almost 23 years before we found out that I was pregnant. And as an outspoken advocate of natural home birth, he was adamant that our that our baby would be born at the same house. It didn't take too much arm twisting to convince me that this was the best method of our birth for both baby and as well for myself. I expected my mother to be excited and pleased as we had decided on a home birth and would be taken care of by the most renowned midwives in the country. She was neither excited nor pleased. Instead, she and my father joined forces in telling me I was endangering not only myself, but their unborn grandchild as well. Every time I spoke with my mother, she had another birthing horror story that ended with, and if she had been at a hospital, she would have, or if she hadn't been at a hospital, she would have died. After she had exhausted those stories, she expounded on my choosing not to have an epidural. You're going to need one, she'd say, and smile sweetly. George and I finally had to tell my parents that we knew what their opinion was, that we were going to do it our way, and that the topic was not open for further discussion. We also let them know that if they continued to attack or question our decision in this matter, we would simply have to stop coming over. They stopped bringing it up with us. My mother proceeded to call my pediatrician, my physician, her best friend, who was a registered nurse from Vanderbilt Hospital in the labor and delivery ward. My former OB gynecologist to check up on the midwife's credentials. She eventually came back and told me that all of these people had told her the farm midwives were the most knowledgeable and experienced midwives, to had anywhere, that they knew what they were doing and my mother should just relax. This was still only the beginning. At my next prenatal visit, Ina May and Pamela went down to a checking list asking me if I had been exposed to any of the various diseases since I had been pregnant. When they got to rubella, I stopped them. The first month I was pregnant, I got Rubella Vaccine that was required of me to be admitted to college. They froze and looked at me with half smiles of disbelief. Ina May said, "But they're supposed to make sure that you're not pregnant before they give you that shot." "Well, they asked me," I explained, "but I was on birth control. My period hadn't been late yet, so they gave me the shot." Neither of them said I started to get nervous. Maybe I'm wrong. "I'll call my doctor tomorrow and find out." "Yes," Ina May said, still half disbelieving. "Do that, then call us." I didn't ask any questions, but when George and I got home, I looked up rubella in my copy of What to Expect When You're Expecting and cried for the rest of the night. The question in the book read something like, should I have an abortion if been exposed to rubella in my first 3 months of pregnancy? And the answer began, not necessarily. The book also warned that rubella could cause congenital heart deformities. I was shocked and grief-stricken. When I called my doctor the next day, he informed me that the shot had merely been a booster and he didn't think it would have any adverse effects on the baby. The ultrasound at 22 weeks indicated that mine was still a low-risk pregnancy and could be handled at the birthing house. Our second trip to the hospital came quite unexpectedly. We were visiting the midwives for what would be the last time before the actual birth. They took my blood pressure and they began running down the list of standard questions. Are you stuck? I might have to go help. Oh, I see, you got it. Good job. They took her blood pressure as usual, and it began running down the list of standard questions. Any headaches? Yes. It was really the first bad headache I had since I had been pregnant. When? This morning. Did you take anything for it? Yes, I took some Tylenol, but it didn't do anything. I'm going to take your blood pressure again. It's high. I'm going to take your blood pressure again. Oh, it's high. I already said that. I didn't really think anything of it. The midwives left the room to talk. When they came back in, Ina May approached the table where I was still reclining and said, "We feel that you have enough of the signs that we would like for you to." And here George and I were both holding our breath. We were positive that Ina May was about to tell us that they wanted me to go ahead and move into the birthing house because they had thought I'd be going into labor soon. Our joy at this thought was short-lived. Go to the hospital and have some tests run. So they were thinking that it was going to be good. Sorry, I was kind of reading that in the opposite way, but so they thought that they were going to be going to the birthing house and that she was going to be having her baby soon. But instead, they said, you need to go to the hospital and have some tests run. You are showing symptoms of pregnancy-induced hypertension. George and I both deflated. The hospital, pregnancy-induced hypertension, after both deflated, the hospital, pregnancy-induced hypertension, after they explained to us what PIH was and some of the risks associated with it, we drove heavy-hearted to meet them at the hospital. If I had PIH, the midwives would not handle my birth on the farm, and I would have to have my baby in the hospital. At the hospital, I was given a room, a gown. I was hooked up to heart and blood pressure monitors for about an hour of observation, and my doctor commented that maybe your high blood pressure is due to being nervous about having your baby on the farm. My blood pressure was normal at the hospital. I was issued a clean bill of health. Doctors call what I had a white coat hypertension. So white coat hypertension, and I don't know if it's going to explain it here, is that when you get around white coats, doctors, that you get really nervous and kind of flustered, anxiety a little bit, and your blood pressure rises. So whenever she went to the hospital, she would have white coat hypertension, which is high blood pressure. This little run-in, however, made my already nervous parents even more. My mother provided me with a portable blood pressure cuff so that I could intermittently monitor my blood pressure at home. Who else's mom would totally do that? It's just from a caring heart. It was a couple days after my visit to the hospital that I got an alarmingly high blood pressure reading. My husband was on a conference call at work, so I called my mother, who immediately suggested that I go to the hospital. Unfortunately, the hospital that my primary care physician worked for was at least 2 hours from our apartment, and because my mother would have been enormously relieved if I had to have my baby at a hospital, I decided to call her friend, Anne, the Vanderbilt labor and delivery nurse who had been incredibly supportive of my decision from the start and had amazingly calm effect on my mom. On this point, however, she agreed with my mother that she thought that I had enough symptoms and found my blood pressure readings way too high. At my last hospital visit, they had done no blood work. Anne was not happy about that and was insistent that I have blood work done. In order to do this, my primary care physician would have to call in referral. Uh-oh, you okay? Did you bump your head? Sorry, my son. He normally naps when I read, but he is awake today, and that's fine. But I will be feeding him the animal crackers. Yay. Thank you. Alrighty. So, after a rather frigid conversation in which she again stated that she thought my high blood pressure was due to being nervous about having my baby on the farm, and added that she was going to suggest Ina May that I have my baby in a hospital because of that, she called and requested a referral to the doctor whom Anne picked out for me. She promised to pick someone who would not be induction happy. Induction happy. My husband left work and we drove to Vanderbilt Hospital, where I was seen by a physician, admitted into labor and delivery ward, and was given a room. I was hooked up to the fetal heart monitor and blood pressure machines. They took some blood and we waited for the test results. We had both called our families and told them to be on alert just in case the doctors decided to induce. When the results came back, I was not found to be hypertensive. We were sent home with the reassuring words that the midwives can, by all means, deliver this baby safe. My parents didn't know whether to be relieved or more nervous still. My water broke around 4 a.m. on the morning of April 21st, the day of my grandfather's funeral. He had been my last living grandparent. We called Ina May and asked if we should leave immediately. She advised us to try to relax for a couple of hours and then make our way down. My first contraction came at 4:22 a.m. We left about 2 hours later on some advice from my mother, who told me contractions are not fun. Are you okay? I keep thinking he's hitting his head, but I guess not. Contractions are not fun, but contractions in a moving vehicle are less fun. We grabbed our things from the apartment and took off. Other than the fact that throwing up in the car is harder to manage than in the bathroom, I don't remember there being much of a difference in the feel of my contractions. Side note, I found a huge difference in the feeling of my contractions. In the car, it was almost unbearable, but when I got down at the hospital, when I was able to stand and sway, it felt so much better. You doing okay? We arrived at the birthing house a little after 7. It was a cold day, but the midwives had come by hours earlier and turned the heat on, so inside the house was cozy and inviting. Ina May and Pamela arrived shortly after and checked my dilation. "It's a good thing you decided to go ahead and come in," Ina May said. "You're already 8 centimeters. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be nice?" Man, I wonder if you feel willing to share, who has showed up at the hospital already 8 centimeters dilated. While I was in labor, I tried to keep an eye on the clock so that I could remember how long everything took to happen and record it accurately later on. However, other than the time of my first contraction and the time that Abigail was born, I do not recall much of the time frame. When I recorded the story in my journal later, I wrote that the contractions had lasted about 4 hours and the pushing for about 2. Ina May told me that some women like the contractions better and some the pushing. See, me, I liked the contractions better than the pushing. But I haven't met many people that are like that. And some like the pushing better than the contractions. I liked the pushing best. It seemed to me to be the most clearly effective means to the end. After approximately 2 hours of pushing, and after having crowned for only one push, Abigail Rosalee was born. Her recorded birth time was 10:22 a.m., exactly 6 hours after my first contraction. She was taken by Ina May and Pamela, who cleaned her up, weighed her in 8 pounds 13 ounces, and dressed her in her snuggiest linnet. We called my parents from the birthing house, and they answered their cell phone right as they were stepping out of the car at the funeral home. They announced to the friends and relatives there that they were proud grandparents. This was their first grandbaby. They said that the people kept coming up and shaking their hands, saying congratulations, and then immediately were so sorry. My mother said that for her it was a powerful reminder that the circle of life and death, and that God is holding us all in his hands. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story. That was the story of Abigail. And I know this one was a little bit longer than my other ones, but let me know if you guys enjoyed this story and what you guys were able to relate to. And I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.